Hi, I'm Shari with Organizational Learning and Talent Development, and on any given day we have choices about where we spend our time and energy. And these choices make a huge difference for our success and also how we feel about our lives. So this model that I'm about to show you, you might even have seen before, but stick with me because I'm going to show you how our experiences fit into these circles behind me. And I'm also going to show us how where our experiences fit really has a direct impact on our lives. So you might have heard of Stephen Covey. In his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he explains how we can be proactive and take responsibility for our lives, even when our lives feel like they're out of control. All right, so let's take a look at his circles of influence and let's see how they really can affect our lives. This outside circle is called the circle of concern. It's also called the circle of no control. Sometimes you hear it as zero control. And these are things that concern us. They might even affect our lives, but we have no control over them. Stuff like the weather. And look how big this outer circle is compared to the others. That's a lot of stuff that we care about that we can't control. In the center, we have the circle of control. So these are things that we can directly affect ourselves. Definitely not as big of an area, right? In between is the circle of influence. These are things that we have some influence over. We can affect or impact them, even if we can't control them. So for example, we can't control whether it rains, but we could take an umbrella or wear the right shoes. And this is where our power lives, because we can either be proactive and make this circle even bigger, or we can be reactive and we can shrink it. And doing either one of those things makes a huge difference in our lives. And I'll talk about how we do that in the next video, which I'll link in the description below. But first, let's look at what kinds of things fit into these circles so we can see how this all works in real life. Starting with what we don't have control over, as we mentioned, we can't control the weather, taxes, the stock market, the price of gas, the economy, the future, the past, other people. For example, their actions or reactions are on a whole lot of things. So, for example, if you notice a bad driver up ahead, you can't control that person's driving, right? So thinking about the coronavirus, what are some things that are out of our control? How long it's going to last? The amount of toilet paper at any given store on any given day, or whether there's hand sanitizer, the number of tests available. And we already said other people, which means we can't control whether other people are social distancing when we walk past them. Yikes, that's a whole lot of examples, right? And I bet you were thinking of some while we were going through those. So let's look at what we can control. And these are just going to be some more examples. And of course, our specifics are all different. So be thinking about what you would put in the center of your circle while we look at these examples. What I say, what I do, physical activity. So taking a walk, stretching, strength training, raising my heart rate, my eating habits, how often I eat nutritious foods and how much junk food I eat. My sleep habits, whether I get in bed at a reasonable hour or stay up late watching TV or playing with my phone. What I do in my free time, thinking about the coronavirus, turning off the news when it gets overwhelming. On my free time, how I choose to follow the CDC recommendations like social distancing, going outside, finding fun stuff to do at home, reaching out to others for some social connection. So which do you think is the most frustrating of these circles? If you thought to yourself, the circle of no control, you're right. This stuff can be so frustrating. And when we put all of our attention here, it feels like we're hitting our heads up against this boundary. And it's kind of like when we are yelling at the TV. They can't hear and it's not helping anything, right? That kind of level of frustration. Now, the good news is we still have the circle of influence, the circle that I'm sitting in right now. And we can be proactive about whether it's a wide circle or a really narrow circle. And what we do in this circle affects our level of frustration, even about the stuff we have no control over. And we're going to take a look at that in the next video. In the meantime, ask yourself these questions. How often do you find yourself concentrating your time, your attention, your emotions on situations in which you truly have zero control? And what can you do now, and what have you done in the past to let go of situations where you don't have any control? How can you cope with it? I'll post these questions in the description below, and I'll also put the link to the second video in this series about our circle of influence.